This is a very Christmassy episode, Chelsey. You're being a Christmas guy deep down, and this is like an anthology show about Santa getting arrested for doing the right thing.
Santa Claus may be a symbol of hyper-capitalism, obedience to authority, the surveillance state, and maybe even a child stand-in for the judgment of the Abrahamic God. But in part 2 of our 2-part series on mall Santas, you'll see a more radical side to old Saint Nick. As in part 1, which you should listen to first, I am joined by my very own Mrs. Claus, Sarah Marshall of You're Wrong About. We've already learned the early history of the creation of the creature that children still visit in malls and department stores to this very day. Now, I'm going to explain how, in some cases, the mall Santa transformed into a symbol of societal change and guerrilla protest. From the ladies who had to take his place during World War II, to the Black Santa revolutionaries of the Civil Rights Movement, to the activist gay Santas who fought, quite creatively, against the stigma of HIV. So come on, kids, let's go sit on Santa's lap one more time. But unlike when we were children back in the olden days, this new generation of mall Santas will have to get our consent first. I'm your host, Chelsey Weber-Smith, and this is American Hysteria. Ho, 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 dear listeners. We are back for part 2 of our series on the history of the mall Santa Claus. Of course, I am here with the dear Sarah Marshall. Thank you so much for being here and joining me for part 2.
Ho, 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 Chelsey. I was just in Pittsburgh.
Ho, 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 Pittsburgh, the Christmas capital of the world.
Yeah, I mean, they'll get there, you know.
They'll get there.
And I am so happy to be joining you again. I cannot begin to imagine where we're going to go, but I'm excited to go there.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. We're looking at a more radical version of the mall Santa Claus today and how he was able to make some political inroads, which maybe is surprising. It was definitely surprising to me.
It is, but also, I mean, that's the thing about Santa. He gets it all done in one night.
He does. Yeah, and just for a reminder for everyone who listened to our last episode, we kind of just went through the very early history of how the idea of the mall Santa came to be and his rise through department stores. We looked at the Charles M. Howard Santa Claus School that started to kind of mass produce the Santa Clauses that would appear in department stores and malls. And we kind of got up to this guy, Max Factor Jr., that Hollywood makeup artist who was also kind of putting forth his rules of the way that a Santa Claus should look to create a uniform version. And do you remember kind of where we ended up?
I feel like we're kind of in the mid-century and we're at maybe the dawn of the modern age of the mall Santa. Like Santa has made it to the land of commerce.
Yes. And do you remember what we left off on in terms of the war effort and what that started to make Santa Claus look like?
Oh, well, I remember Santa went to war, right?
Well, once the men went off to war, we started to have women playing Santa Claus.
Right. Oh, my God.
Yes.
Which also is explored in a very important episode of The Office where Phyllis wants to be Santa.
Yes, I remember that. As she should have been.
I know. I wanted to read you a really lovely Facebook Marketplace ad I found titled Natural Beard Santa Claus. And the description is, hello, who's looking for a special visit from the, quote, big guy? I am a natural bearded Santa. I have worked the mall the last several years, trying my hand in the private party side. $100 an hour, 2-hour minimum. Penny, the skunk, not included. He's holding a skunk in the photo. And I wish them well.
And I say, include that skunk.
You know what? I feel like he's going to have to start including the skunk. I think the people are going to demand Penny to be included.
Well, he needs, like, at this point, a real beard isn't going to make you stand out. As we talked about in our last episode, the man who taught me to parallel park was a mall Santa who lived across the street with a very real beard. And it almost feels like a requirement to have a real beard at this point. So yeah, he's going to need to step up, pop a little elf costume on that pet skunk, and we'll hire him. That's for sure.
Yep. Well, okay. I'm very excited to, I guess, watch women crack the ermine ceiling.
That's right. Okay. So when we left off, we were, in the beginning of World War II. And as we talk about a lot on this show, it was a very important time for women's rights because the men were all gone overseas. Rosie the Riveter, the American government, was begging women to enter the workforce and take over the jobs of men. And that would eventually include Santa Claus.
Chelsey, you've seen A League of Their Own, right?
Yeah, it's been quite a while since I've watched it, though.
Yeah. To me, that's what I immediately think of when I think of, just it is fascinating, right? This idea that like women are physically incapable of doing men's work. And then suddenly when there are not enough men to do it, it's like, well, okay, I guess you are. I guess you got a special dispensation. And then for 4 years, you're like, the pseudoscience about your body disappears, or, plenty of people, I'm sure we're still believing it pretty staunchly, but it becomes less relevant. And then suddenly you become a delicate flower again.
Yep.
I don't know. I've always found that fascinating. And also how there was propaganda, first the Rosie the Riveter iconography about, showing women on the assembly line and doing war effort jobs. And then propaganda at the end of the war about Rosie the Riveter going back to cook.
Yeah.
Which, cooking is great, but it also takes biceps.
It does. Women
deserve to have.
Yeah, it's there was that kind of demand at the end there. It was like, okay, we're done with you.
Yep.
But they couldn't really put the tooth back. They couldn't really, put the toothpaste back in the tube at that point. And it was a big turning point.
I liked it when you said tooth. They could not put the tooth back in the head. The tooth was free, bouncing around, exploring sugar.
Oh, boy. Okay. So at this point, there were like some Mrs. Clauses out in the world at department stores.
Okay.
Like it wasn't like women were barred completely from the Christmas whimsy.
Do you have a sense of what the Mrs. Claus role involved at the time?
Sure. Yeah. So really, it kind of seemed like the department stores wanted to create like a little more of a gendered difference in experience. So if you'll remember Charles W. Howard and his Santa Claus school.
I will never forget.
How could you forget? He actually began accepting female students as early as 1937, like right when he actually opened the school. And one Associated Press report about this, which I think will answer some of your questions, said, quote, Howard wants to train Mrs. Claus to show that the lady does the feminine work of dressing dolls while Santa himself makes the soldiers and wagons and other more boyish toys. Santa needs a real feminine helper, someone to make dainty dresses and beautiful dolls for the good little girls. And she'll have to be good looking too, which is weird. She'll greet the little girls, learn what they want in their Christmas stockings, and teach them how to play with dollies, dollhouses, dishes, and clothes.
I mean, I think it's nice to have like a woman to talk to because many children are rightfully taught to avoid strange old men they've never seen before. But surely dressing dolls is an elf job. You want tiny little elf hands for that.
I would think so.
Right?
I would really think so.
Yeah. I think Mrs. Claus is like I don't know, my image of Mrs. Claus is that she's kind of a stay-at-home girlfriend,
Yeah.
I realize they're married, but that's a more fun term.
Yeah, I agree.
She's doing Pilates. She's chilling. Literally.
There's also the heavy implication here that if Santa were making toys for girls, it would be kind of gay.
Right. That Santa would lose his masculine edge. And I will say again, one of my favorite Santa illustrations that I talked about with Sarah Archer in our most recent Santa episode, and I think the one from last year too, is a depiction, I think from the late 19th century, of Santa doing all his Santa tasks. And there's a lot of doll related stuff. And he has to sew the doll's clothes and he's by the fire doing his doll craft, and my Santa does dolls. That's all I'm going to say. My Santa makes dolls.
Your Santa's fingers are pricked to the bone with needle injuries.
I just think that if you are in charge of making toys for all the little children, you can't draw random lines, You got to
I agree.
You got to do it all.
Commit.
Also, a soldier is also a doll.
Let's be real. Dropping hot take after hot take already.
Yeah, it's true.
Okay, so during Christmas time in the early war years, the actor Daisy Belmore, do you know her?
No.
She was a co-star of films like Dracula and All Quiet on the Western Front. So she was a big star. And she became the resident hybrid Mrs. Claus Santa Claus.
Oh.
She was kind of neither one nor the other, kind of almost a non-binary Santa Claus.
Santa Claus X. I don't know.
Yes, because she dressed as Santa with a skirt and stockings. And she wasn't really, I don't know, it was I don't think she had the beard, but she wasn't fully Mrs. Claus. She was kind of this stepping stone between the Mrs. Claus and the actual lady Santa Claus that was about to come onto the scene.
Okay.
So here's another excerpt from an article in the New York Herald Tribune from that time that quotes Daisy Belmore describing how the children were, and I just think this was fun, asking for toys to help the war effort. It was very clear that the, propaganda, for lack of a better word, was really kind of sinking into children's consciousness and not just the boys. So,
yeah. And I will say also, propaganda is not intrinsically a negative term. Right. It means,
yes, exactly.
If you're a propagandist, then you're propagating ideas and you're trying to, you're in the convincing and persuading arts, and that can cut both ways. But yeah, there was a lot of, children being urged to collect rubber and stuff at the time.
Yeah, exactly. I think it just is one of those words that has taken on a pretty negative meaning, even though sometimes it's more neutral.
Well, arguably, if you respect your people, you don't just try and, communicate to them entirely in slogans. But anyway.
That's true. That's true. So she said, quote, "Why, the little girls all want nurses' kits and the boys want medical things." She says that at one point she patted a small newcomer on the head and asked, "And what do you want for Christmas?" The customer was a little girl about 7 years old. Miss Belmore leaned closer to hear her reply. In a moment, she looked up. "There," she said triumphantly, "the little girl wants a machine gun."
For shooting Nazis.
That's right. That's right. So I just thought that was a cute little...
That's adorable.
A little time capsule of what was going on at that time.
And also, what if she was just a tiny little Rambo,
The thing about this idea of trying to work Mrs. Claus into the Santa Claus position while the boys and the men were away was that Mrs. Claus was kind of an unknown character until the 1950s. She was around, but she wasn't something that kids thought of when they thought of Christmas. It wasn't until the 50s and Nat King Cole's Mrs. Santa Claus song that she became a staple of the understanding of Santa and his universe. So When they tried the Mrs. Claus angle at department stores, I read like several different mentions in newspapers that kids seemed to be like absolutely shocked that Santa was a married man.
I mean, yeah, he does. I guess the fear of having him make dolls suggests a mid-century worry that people will view him as a confirmed bachelor.
Yes. Kids also were kind of like, I don't want to talk to Santa's wife. I want to talk to Santa. Like, I don't need this middle woman. Just let me talk to the man himself. He's not at war, right? Like, he should be here.
That's true.
Yeah.
But surely the troops need Santa, you know?
Yeah.
I would just use that as an excuse.
That's a good excuse, you know? We've come up with a lot through the years.
Yeah. Santa's making mittens for all of the soldiers. And also, you know, artillery and stuff.
Exactly. Yeah. Santa is becoming a war criminal.
Santa's making munitions, honey.
But there were like some barriers to this new idea that maybe we use a woman to play Santa Claus. And I found a bunch of articles, and I cannot prove that this is true, but there were so many articles that said this, and there have been like follow-up articles, you know, like those kind of listicles that are like funny laws that are still on the books.
Yeah, I always liked those.
I like those. And this was about how in the mid to late 30s, it was illegal for a woman to dress as Santa Claus in the street with a punishment of 30 days in prison. And this was specifically, I think, in Minnesota. I can't remember exactly where it was.
Where women have to dress like Santa just to stay warm.
Yeah, exactly. How do you define if a woman is dressing like Santa Claus versus dressing as?
Yeah, I would love for one of those cases to go all the way to the Supreme Court, and they would decide that, like, you know, it has to be like red velvet. Red corduroy does not a Santa make, or something like that.
It does not. It does not. But all of that was about to change. And none other than our Hollywood makeup artist turned Santa designer, Max Factor Jr., would write the rule book of how Santa Claus could be performed by a lady correctly.
Wow.
Yes.
Okay. Of course, a man is telling us how to do it. I also am still not over the fact that Max Factor isn't short for maximum factor. Like, I so deeply believed that, apparently.
I know. It's hard. It's hard to adjust to new information.
It's hard to learn sometimes.
It sure is. So I will read this article that came out in 1943. It's titled, "Gonna Be a Santa Claus? Max Factor has a few tips for the ladies who would impersonate Saint Nick." To make sure the Santa Claus legend doesn't go into decline because of the manpower shortage, many women are going to have to impersonate the Christmas saint this year. So Max Factor Jr., Hollywood authority on makeup and glamour, suggests that women who would be Santas observe a few devices of disguise, aside from the mere donning of a Santa Claus suit. All right, here's some of his rules. If you're slender, don't spare the pillow padding. If your outfit doesn't include a mask, add to your age by putting on heavy eyebrows and by drawing wrinkles around your eyes and on your forehead with an eyebrow pencil.
I thought we agreed in the last episode that masks are a no-go on Santa, and now Max Factor is rewriting the book, apparently.
Thank you for pointing that out, because I had the exact same thought. Yeah.
Like, what? Yeah.
We don't want masks.
No.
But it wasn't Max Factor who said no masks. It was Charles Howard.
Yes, yeah. But I mean, who dare go against the wisdom of Charles Howard, you know?
I mean, he is the king of Christmas, I would say at this point. However, you know, he needs his not gay makeup artist to help him figure it out. And I wonder, though, like, would Charles Howard have been like, women should wear the mask? Like, better a frightening Christmas face than a woman's face.
Oh, my God. Well, and also, I mean, if I'm Max Factor, like, surely I want people to be buying more eyebrow pencils.
Good point.
And construing it as for the war effort, vaguely.
Good point. And, you know, the eyebrow pencil really is a triumph for the costuming of the face. I just used it. My mom just used it on me, I think. She'll be mad at me if I was wrong, to make my sideburns for my Eddie from Rocky Horror costume this
Aw.
year. So God bless it.
See, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's cool. Okay. Next time I need sideburns.
You can use it for many different things. So the next rule, if you don't wear a mask, puff your cheeks by inserting wads of cotton or a walnut to change both your face shape and voice.
Walnuts.
Yeah.
That's a good trick. I learned this thing once. I forget from where. I think it was from like an Australian kids book. And it might have been one of the Stella Street books, but about like, if you put green beans under both of your lips, they'll like change the shape of your face. That's what that reminds me of.
Whoa.
So if you have walnuts and green beans, you're like halfway to Thanksgiving dinner, I guess.
This is like the original filler.
Yeah. Yeah. Ladies, don't waste money at the
Come on.
Whoever does filler. Just put beans under your lips. It's sustainable.
And if you don't like how it turned out, take the bean out from under your lip.
Find a better bean. It's your bean. You can do whatever you want with it.
Baby. Okay, so Max Factor continues. Broaden the mouth with lipstick in straight, unfeminine lines. I don't know what that exactly means. I guess not to do.
What? I don't know either. Does that mean that like Santa just has a long, straight gash for a mouth?
It's scary.
Why not?
Scary. Yeah, and it's not like men don't have lips.
Yeah, they
You know what I
do.
mean?
You know, some of them seem to disappear at a certain age, but they're in there.
Yeah, they're in there somewhere. Then he says you got to heavily rouge the nose and cheeks, which seems obvious and fair.
Right. Because they got chapped at the North Pole and you're drinking also.
Yeah. Yes.
Santa likes
Every
a little
Santa
brandy.
is an alcoholic.
Yeah.
I feel that that's true for some reason.
It is, right? Because there's like such a theme of like the drunk Santa. And I guess it's because it's like, it feels ironic because they work with kids and it feels maybe a bit taboo busting. But also maybe it's just like, maybe there's something deeper than that. But you know, one of my favorite pieces of Santa media is the Twilight Zone episode, The Night of the Meek, with Art Carney as an alcoholic Santa.
Yes, I remember that one.
And it's so good, and I really recommend it.
I think I started to watch that for this episode, but it didn't quite fit in, unfortunately, because I always want to bring in the teasy when I can.
It is, by the way, just so you know, an episode of The Twilight Zone where nothing terrible happens. So that's really nice.
I know, it's kind of like a weirdly happy, it's almost like a Hallmark version of a Twilight Zone episode, which is very interesting.
It's very sweet. Every so often there's just like a really sweet one. That's what I love about Rod Serling, among other things.
Long live.
More after this. And now back to the show.
So he continues, be sure to appear in shoes not obviously feminine. Remove rings and nail enamel or wear white cotton gloves. So those are going to be your obvious giveaways. I'm surprised he's not like wear clown shoes, like make your feet huge.
Right. He's like, just so you know, you shouldn't wear like little suede mules as Santa. And it's like, I think they know that.
God, wouldn't that be so great? It's like there's the full Santa outfit, but then like a couple
tiny
like little
feet
kitten
sticking
heels.
out. Yes, I would love to see that.
Make sure you don't use perfume that might indicate to the kids that you're not as he-manish as you might be.
Why does Santa have to be so masculine, you know?
And it's like, is he?
Not really.
I don't know.
I mean, he's famously like a happy, jolly guy who makes toys, which unfortunately happiness is not a big part of American masculinity, although it would be nice if it was.
I know. We want you to be happy, men. We really do.
We really do.
It'd be better for all of us.
And also, you know, happy people don't kill their husbands or wives. They just don't.
I know. I know. You just go to see the lights at the botanical garden for Christmas. It's a beautiful thing. So the article finishes with his last suggestion. Guard against having your whiskers pulled off by youngsters sitting in your lap.
Yeah, that sounds hard.
That does sound hard.
Although, I get 1 or 2 decent whiskers out of my chin now, every few weeks. So I could just say that's my beard.
I have a couple that I have to pull out like every 2 weeks too.
Yeah.
Where we are of a certain age.
Yeah. Do you ever get that thing where like you have one that's like half an inch long out of nowhere and you're like, how long has this been happening? Have I not been paying attention to my own face?
And then it's like, as soon as I feel it, there is nothing else in the world that I can think about except pulling it out.
Yeah.
Like it is pathological.
And it is very pleasing to do.
I do have a little picture that I found of a lady Santa.
Oh, yes.
I sent you the Google Doc.
Oh, great. Okay. I'll open that. I really like how this doc starts with the beginning.
It's a tome.
Yeah, it is. It's always, I love a Chelsey tome.
Thank you.
Oh, I see it. Wait, I see later. Looks like we got an alternate spelling of Macklemore. Anyway.
We do. We'll get to that.
Okay. All right. So here's the picture. I like the Santa.
Yeah, it's not following all the rules, I would say, but...
Yeah, but we've got a nice big beard and a hood, and then just a nice young face, which to me doesn't look particularly feminine or masculine. It's just like the face of a nice looking person.
Mm-hmm.
And Santa is holding a cute little toddler with a bow in her hair. And I don't know, I feel like I would prefer a female Santa the same way that I prefer a female gynecologist. It's just a lot. It's a lot to trust a man with.
It is. It's a lot. It's a lot to trust a man with. And, as we've talked about, it's like the stranger danger vibe of why so many kids get scared about Santa is like, it's a big, strange man in strange clothing. And he's scarier than this kind of non-binary looking Santa Claus that we have here.
Right. And there's a good chance I would have been freaked out by this Santa as a little kid. But it's like due to the kind of the bias and teaching that has, I think most grade school educators historically are female. It's like you're kind of more used to just like doing something weird with a strange woman when you're a child.
Yeah. It's true. It's true.
And also, I would trust a female Santa to remember what toys I wanted.
That's a great point. Yeah. Perhaps a better listener, not to generalize.
Mrs. Claus can deal with the mental load. Yeah.
It's a lot to remember. So, as you might imagine, not everyone was thrilled with these new lady Santas. So I thought I would read you just a little article here from 1942.
Oh, God. Are you sure this wasn't published in the New York Times like this week?
Good topical joke, Sarah.
Thank you.
The title does feel very New York Timesian at this moment in its history. But unfortunately, it is from the San Angelo Standard Times out of Texas.
Well, maybe we should be getting our news from that paper.
One last male domain.
The last one.
The last one, people. It is customary in wartime for women to take over numerous fields of employment conventionally reserved for men. Mrs. Roosevelt, for instance, suggests that next summer may present the phenomenon of feminine harvest hands on the nation's farms.
That bitch.
Reminiscent of the farmettes of World War I.
Oh,
which
farmettes.
sounds cool.
Yeah.
I'd like to look more into that.
I want to be a farmette, Chelsey.
Yeah. You are a farmette.
Well, I don't have enough skills, but I do have the overalls. I'm working towards the rest.
The farmettes had to start somewhere, didn't they?
That's true. Yeah.
Mrs. Roosevelt may be quite right, for since it is already conceded that a woman's place is in the office, factory, courtroom, marketplace, corner filling station, and other locations too numerous to mention, it is not unreasonable to expect that her place may also be behind the plow and atop the bundle wagon. There is one male domain, however, that should be defended at all costs, a fact emphasized by a news item some days ago reporting that in a Massachusetts town, 2 women had applied for the job of department store Santa Claus.
Oh my God.
The store, it was stated, turned down the application, but the incident serves as a warning of what the future may hold. A woman Santa Claus? Heaven forbid. That would be stretching the credulity of guileless little children too far.
Oh, come on.
Imagine having them grow up to that skeptical age where they would say, "Aw, they ain't no Santa Claus. It's only your ma."
Well, first of all, it is your ma. And B, what?
That's the end of the article. It ends there.
Why is that the hardest to believe? Because, like, look, I love the Santa story. I think if you don't want to raise your kids by telling them the Santa story, then that's great and I support it. But, like, I'm pro Santa. I grew up in a very Santa-centric household. I think we, as many Americans do, kind of put Santa in the, places where Jesus was for other people.
Right.
But, like, he lives on the North Pole. He delivers billions of presents in one night. He's fabricating computer chips apparently now. I don't think the idea of this person being a woman makes it like that much harder to believe. In fact, it makes it easier to believe.
Yes, it is. When you put it that way, Sarah, it's pretty crazy. So the next thing I want to read from is from Henry Macklemore, as you said, not that Macklemore. Good joke. And listen, as with like so many articles, from like the 1800s, the mid-century, it's always been hard to tell when something is tongue-in-cheek and when it's a serious type of, column.
Right.
So same with this one. I think it's a mix, right? I think that it's...
Or when they're like being a little tongue-in-cheek to sort of like maintain a bit of plausible deniability about the fact that they are really scandalized by these female Santas.
Yeah, exactly.
Because I feel like sometimes people do that too. And they can be like, no, I was kidding about my deeply held belief.
That's not at all the mess that we found ourselves in today.
No. Well, and I guess to like a last thing about the article you just read, I find it like weirdly reassuring, I guess, that like back then and probably since the existence of newspapers, if not longer ago, we like to make fear-mongering stories, not out of something that was happening, but out of something that maybe if you like really stretched the available truth could happen. Because it's like 2 women applied to be Santas in Massachusetts and they weren't hired. And it's like, well, I think we're going to be okay.
Yeah, I think we're going to be okay.
But let's imagine if all the Santas became female and freak out about that, and that's the same way we write op-eds now.
We are in a world war.
The greatest threat facing the United States, aside from fascism, is hot women as Santa. Yeah.
It's a lady Santa invasion. What I will say about Henry Macklemore, he was a sports columnist and he wrote like a lot of really terrible shit in support of FDR's internment of Japanese Americans. So we can kind of orient ourselves with those facts about old Macklemore here. He wrote in 1942, let me see here.
Which present day Macklemore would probably like us to know he never did. So
he didn't do it.
Good for him.
No, he didn't do it. I was in the toy department of a big department store, just kind of fooling around, having a go at the electric trains, winding up the tanks and trying to make them go up inclines.
Good job using the word department twice in one clause, newspaper man.
Yeah, I can't stand that. Pulling the triggers of those boys-sized machine guns and generally having a very good time, which is, I imagine, a joke. I don't think he was really doing those things, but it is a funny image.
It is.
I still maintain that the toys I broke were faulty in the beginning and that it was a very fortunate thing that I dropped in to test them out. Otherwise, the store would have had a mess of complaints to deal with on December 26th. So strong start. Funny guy.
Yeah. Cute.
This was the situation when, out of the corner of the eye that I wasn't using to sight an anti-aircraft gun that fires 100 wooden bullets in a minute, I sighted a Santa Claus.
Oh, boy.
He also said sight and sighted in the same sentence.
Yeah, come on. Edit your writing, you
lazy, sloppy.
fascist. Yeah.
Not the standard Santa Claus, not the regulation St. Nicholas, not the accepted resident of the North Pole, not the genuine driver of Donner and Blitzen and the other reindeer that make such a clatter on the roof. No, sir, this was a woman Santa Claus. Yeah, Wilhelm scream. If there is such a thing as a minor horror, then a minor horror of this war is female Santa Clauses.
There's people that are dying, Kim.
Yeah, come on, Macklemore. Christine Kringle, Sarah St. Nicholas, Susie Santa Claus. Holy smoke.
Wow. Sarah's found dead in a ditch, you know?
Yeah. She lit up a room. When you make Santa Claus feminine, you might just as well say Jacqueline Dempsey, Barbara Ruth, Tynette Cobb, Louis Strongfort, Doris MacArthur, Jeanette Doolittle, Strangelorette Lewis, Lassie Mountain Dean, and Jemima Thorpe. No idea what that means.
Lassie Mountain Dean.
Yeah, I don't know.
Stranglerette Lewis. I don't know. I assume these are like boxing and baseball names. I feel like
they must be.
In like the 1890s through the 1960s, baseball players were named like Sweet Muffin McStumplegs, and exactly. They were every boy's hero. I love that he's like, well, if we let women be Santa, then what if they do all kinds of other things? It's like, yeah, it's a slippery slope, isn't it? That would be terrible.
It is. It's a slippery slope argument. Pretty soon we'll be letting St. Bernards be Santa Claus. Nail biters, as Anita Bryant so skillfully pointed out. Okay, there she stood, a little old wren of a Santa Claus. The pillow she used for a stomach didn't help, and neither did the soprano voice that squeaked through some cut-down gray whiskers. She didn't walk like Santa Claus walks. She lumbered and flat-footed around, the result of years of carrying that massive pack on his back. This female Santa minced around on size 3 shoes, and worst of all, she giggled.
Well, look, if
the real Santa Claus never giggled.
He would if he could.
How do you know? He's not real. He's not real.
I know.
There's no real Santa
It's so
Claus.
insane. But it's like, you're like, there's a war on. People are dying.
Yeah.
And this guy's like, I've met Santa, and that was not Santa. And this is very upsetting to me.
The Santa I know is a real man with a jolly laugh who kissed me on the mouth.
But as we know from right now, I guess, the more serious the world issues, the more hung up many of us get on fear of a female Santa or something like that.
Or something like that. Very true. The real Santa never giggled. He had a twinkle in his eye and he had a kindly smile, but you always felt like you had to be a good boy or girl when he was near, because underneath all his sweetness, he gave you a feeling of being able to get even stricter with you than Papa if he thought you needed it.
Oh boy.
Just like, okay.
If you want to be disciplined by Santa, then that is up to you. Do it on your own time. It's not a national problem.
Well, and it's like, again, it's like this thing of Santa. And I do get this sense like Santa's kind of scary.
Yeah. I've always found Santa scary, as we've discussed.
He can put you on a list.
Right.
And it's also like this Jesus stand-in thing, too, where it's like we've got this sweet, loving Jesus, but like he's also ready to send you to hell.
Wow, Jesus does put you on the naughty list, or at least his dad does. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. And the whole, you know, he knows when you're sleeping. He knows when you're awake. He knows if you've been bad or good. So be good for goodness sake.
It's scary.
It's yeah. Okay. So you and I were children before the elf on a shelf. And I will always be grateful for that, because as a kid, it was just like enough for me to know that Santa was an omniscient presence. Like I didn't need to be surveilled by a tiny little guy. Very happy to have missed that one.
Absolutely. Thrilled. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I was a pretty good kid, so I wasn't doing many naughty things. I was kind of like pathologically well behaved.
I think I was one of those kids who like, you know, and this is like ADHD to an extent, but it was like, I was the kind of kid where if you told me like, Sarah, stop kicking the seat in front of you, I would be like, I can't. My legs want to kick.
I know. I was just talking about how it was such a 90s thing. Your dad would get so pissed when you put your feet on the dashboard.
Oh, well, and my dad really hated when I accidentally stepped on the back of his shoes if I was like following him too closely.
Yep.
Yeah. Although you shouldn't put your feet in the dashboard, because if you get in an accident, then your legs will get all crunched up. I'm sorry, but it is true.
And I wish that was the reason. But
right. But it was, well, and also it was a thing where like...
Get your muddy feet off the friggin' glove compartment.
But do you, Chelsey, do you ever like turn on the interior, like the dome light inside the car when you're driving and be like, I'm breaking the law
every time I do it?
Because every parent in the 90s was like, no, we can't. We just can't. We can't. We'll all get put in jail.
It's not actually illegal to do that.
No. And it doesn't interfere with your driving. And also, how else are you supposed to tell your purchases apart when you go to Taco Bell? You know?
Yeah. And I just Googled it, and like the first thing that comes up is, why did our parents tell us it was illegal to turn on the interior
light? Like who told, did someone tell them that? Let's do that episode next year. I think that people are ready for a dome light expose.
Let's see if I can get some blood from that stone enough to make a whole episode. Okay. So back to our Macklemore column here. He continues. I feel sorry for the kids today. This is very, I hope you know what this means, because I don't. I feel sorry for the kids today. They put on long pants when they're 6.
I can maybe guess what that means.
What do you think that means?
Well, okay. So, you know, the expression like, I've known you since you were in short pants, you know, it's kind of like an old relative.
I've never heard that expression.
I don't know why I have, like apparently many times, but
I'm probably going to hear it all the time now.
Yeah, exactly. But I think that that's like an expression that's based on the fact that like, I mean, even I think before this guy was writing, maybe more as like an end of 19th century type of thing. Someone in fashion history will correct me, and I can't wait to get the intel. But basically that kids used to wear short pants, and that graduating, I think especially as well as a little boy, because that was who was allowed to wear pants, I'm pretty sure, that graduating to long pants kind of meant that you had come into some degree of maturity, or that you were kind of an older child. And so it feels like it's like kids are growing up too fast today.
Right.
And these female Santas aren't helping.
Yeah. And then, okay, so that makes sense, because he continues and says, they will never know the awful feeling of pride and embarrassment of putting on their first long pants at 16 and feeling that every eye in the world is looking at them.
Okay, Henry, is this why you're so weird? Did you have to wear bloomers through like 11th grade or what? What's this guy's deal? This is like a fascinating psychological case study of this man.
It is. And so were children wearing shorts in the winter?
We've run through all of my knowledge, but I think that like, well, you would,
because there were like more dresses happening for kids, for boy kids.
Well, when they were little, I think maybe less when they were like older than like baby to toddler age, but you would also wear like high socks. I feel like there were a lot of knee socks. I'm totally speculating here.
Sound off in the comments.
Yeah, we're gonna don't like pants. Short pants. If we do another like ends and pieces episode that's just like topics that weren't full episodes, I would not be mad about it.
We should do that. We should do an ends and pieces. That's a good idea.
Yeah.
Okay. He continues. They will never know the lonesome, sweet call of the old-fashioned locomotive. All they know is the silly hoot of a diesel steamliner.
I mean, look, I would like to know the old-fashioned sweet call of a locomotive, but it's, you know, I didn't really have a choice in the matter. And I don't think female Santas are to blame for the death of the steam engine.
Nope, I don't either, but He continues, worst of all, they have had women Santa Clauses foisted on them.
I feel like there are worse things happening to children during World War II.
I do too.
Look, I read the Molly books. That girl had to tap dance without her glasses on. I can't think of anything scarier. And also her dad was at war or whatever.
Yeah, and a story I love about my granny is that she had one doll. She lived in England, but she had one doll. The doll's head got broken, like a porcelain doll's head shattered, and she couldn't get another one, so she just carried it around headless and just loved it so much, regardless of its head being gone.
Yeah. I mean, when you love someone, you don't mind if they've been decapitated.
That's what we say in our family. So he continues. Think back. Would you and I have ever believed in a Santa Claus who didn't live up to the storybook pictures? War is primarily a matter of big things, but there are a lot of little things that it changes too. Sweet little things. Which feels like the end of like some kind of memoir essay that
like the little red welts on the backs of my thighs from Santa's crop. Sorry.
Yeah. Or like my bare legs in the ninth grade.
And my little short pants when Santa came to discipline me.
So, of course, once the war was over, the men returned and they returned to their Christmas posts and all was right again in the world.
Yeah. And Gina Davis got married and gave up baseball and so forth.
It's heartbreaking. And then, you know, they kind of disappeared. I mean, even now, it's not really like we see any women playing Santa Claus ever under any circumstances.
The two female Santas I can think of are Phyllis in The Office. And I was going to recommend to you also, or maybe have already, but I really love and am trying to kind of influence people to watch the Dick Van Dyke Christmas episode where, well, first of all, you get to see Rosemary singing Santa, Won't You Bring Me a Man? But also where we have a sketch where Dick Van Dyke and Mary Tyler Moore are playing, I guess, kind of Salvation Army Santas.
Okay.
And then they fall in love and they do a little dance and it's very cute. But it's like part of the joke is that she can't do a good ho, ho, ho because she has a little lady voice. But then they're two Santas in love. And but that's all I can think of. And I wish I could have seen a female Santa growing up and a lot of other stuff. But like I know the illusion would not have been broken by that for me. You know, I think it's like, really, this feels like based on the idea that like kids are pretty credulous and that the way they see the world is shaped when they're young. And wouldn't it be terrible if they learned that women could do things that men can do?
Right, right.
More after this. And now back to the show.
I think that brings us pretty smoothly into our next section. As we've talked about, we're kind of skipping over the 1950s. You and Sarah Archer did a really fun episode about the Cold War era Santa. So
go check that out on You're Wrong About if you feel like it.
Go check that out, everybody. And kind of you can fit that into the story here. But I want to talk about, again, this idea of Santa Claus being used as a tool of activism. So, Sarah, I bet you remember the year of our culture war, 2013, when we had Megyn Kelly.
Oh, my God. That's a name I've not heard in a long time.
Kind of making her proclamation that Santa Claus is white. You remember this?
Oh my God. Now that you say it, I do. But it's just like, Megyn, once again, he lives in our hearts. If someone lives in your heart, that doesn't make them white.
It does for Megyn Kelly, I think. But
oh my God.
I also noticed while I was working on this that Megan's name is spelled Megyn. And then I realized that we could kind of call her MEGYN, like an OBGYN.
Oh my
and that could be her feminist punk name from like 1993.
Yeah.
So I will be referring to her.
She'd gone in that direction.
Yeah, I will be referring to her going forward as MEGYN
Kelly. I like that. And then you're like, yeah, I got to go to the MEGYN. You know, when you're in your second trimester, you have to hear some idiot talk about how Santa's white for an hour. It's like good for the baby, I guess.
It helps induce labor through feelings of rage.
My Santa is Michelle Yeoh.
Okay. So anyway, I thought we could just quickly revisit this clip because it's so absurd. The context.
Yes.
The context is that she's on Fox News, of course, discussing this like very innocent Slate article written by Aisha Harris about her experience being a Black girl who had one kind of Santa represented in her family home and community, while also seeing that white Santa dominated pop culture and basically every other instance of, you know, Santa Claus. So she just ventures this idea of making Santa into a lovable animal, specifically a penguin, that would kind of help kids of all different backgrounds just not feel left out, because it's like Santa's no longer a person, he's just an animal.
Right.
And that made Megyn Kelly really, I mean, mad isn't exactly the word, but we'll watch the clip.
But at least she was like being paid to be mad.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's kind of the whole thing about Fox News, isn't it? Here we go. I'm sending you the clip and we can watch it together. And go back down memory lane to 2013, a terrible time, but also a weird, like the fact that this was an outlandish moment in history shows how far we've fallen, because this would just fall by the wayside as a normal comment today. Okay.
I turned 25 in 2013, and I remember crying the night before my birthday because Dana Scully, well, actually, Gillian Anderson was 25 when the X-Files started airing, and I just felt that I was like so many miles behind her level of competence that I would never catch up. And it's true, but also, why was I comparing myself to Dana Scully?
That's just, you know, that's just who you are, and that's why we all love you so much. You're always reaching for the stars.
That's true.
Okay.
Santa Claus should not be a white man anymore. And when I saw this headline, I kind of laughed and I said, oh, this is so ridiculous. Yet another person claiming it's racist to have a white Santa, you know? And by the way, for all you kids watching at home, Santa just is white, but this person is just arguing that maybe we should also have a black Santa. But, you know, Santa is what he is, and just so you know, we're just debating this because someone wrote about it, kids. Okay, I wanted to get that straight. But Jedediah, when I read the piece, the author seems to have, you know, she's African-American, and she seems to have real pain at having grown up with this image of a white Santa, and she speaks about it kind of honestly, saying, I didn't really understand why that had to be.
Yeah, she wants Santa to be inclusive, and I had the same reaction. Initially, I was thinking, oh, this is more politically correct nonsense. This is hypersensitivity in our culture. And then you read the piece and you really walk through the steps with her. I think it's a tribute to her writing. And you realize if you were a young kid and you were African-American and your Santa Claus was white, it would affect you when you went to school. Maybe you wouldn't feel that you were part of that tradition. Now, she suggests that a penguin should be Santa.
Okay, that's where she goes off the rails.
Well, I think that's kind of interesting, though, to have an animal, which is something that kids love, sort of brings that cartoonish component into it, and I think that makes all kids kind of feel welcome in the process. So I see where she was going with that.
No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't make all kids feel.
Hey, I like penguins.
It makes all birds feel welcome.
Kids
Monica,
like penguins.
You know, but okay, so I've given, her name is Aisha Harris. I've given her her due on where she was going with it, but just because it makes you feel uncomfortable doesn't mean it has to change. You know, I mean, Jesus was a white man too, but you know, it's like
Megyn.
he was a historical figure. I mean, that's a verifiable fact, as is Santa. I just want the kids watching to know that.
Yes.
But my point is, how do you just revise it, you know, in the middle of the legacy of the
What are the kids who are watching Fox News?
Yeah, I know.
God. I mean, there are some of them, and I feel bad for them.
So yeah, there you go. That's Megyn Kelly on Santa.
So this is like such a classic Fox News of like making something out of nothing because it's a 24-hour news cycle and we have to invent something to be upset about every day.
Yeah.
But like, I remember growing up and noticing just like the existence, I think mainly in craft stores, of like Black Santa iconography.
Yeah.
And it just always seemed to me that there were different Santas.
Yeah.
And that didn't ever really bother me as a kid.
No, because you just want presents.
Right.
You just want presents. It's fine.
Right. That's the thing. He's really mainly, it's like the thing maybe that parents forget is just like the way you dream about something that an adult could just buy when you're a child is so much more powerful than a lot of actual, spiritual belief systems. It's just like,
That's true.
I don't care who Santa is, as long as he's going to bring me, what were my dream toys? I don't know. But as long as he brings me whatever I wanted that year.
I really wanted that robot dog. Remember that? But it like walked like one step and fell over.
I do remember that robot dog. That always makes me think of Gone Girl now, when they have the like Nancy Grace character played by Missy Pyle, like bring Ben Affleck a robot dog, or no, robot cat, she says, to go with your robot dog. I really wanted the Playmobil dollhouse when I was a kid, like so badly. It had a widow's walk, and then I finally got it as an adult, and it was not as exciting as it would have been back then, obviously.
No, probably not. I think the best gift, my favorite gift I got as a kid, was the Tornado Twister RC car, which was,
wow,
it's like front wheels spun around. So if you like launched it off of like a little cliff, you could do like kind of sick, almost like skateboard-esque tricks. And it was really thrilling. So for those of you who remember that.
Was it like based on Twister the movie?
No.
Oh, just
that would be really cool.
Yeah, I would like it if I could have like just replicas of the Storm Chaser cars and Twister. I would want that right now, actually. And then we could play with them.
And like a little Helen Hunt and a little Bill Paxton doll and like a cow that kind of flew around.
Yeah. And a little Jamie Gertz with a little cell phone. Yeah.
That'd be really cool.
And a little Lois Smith and a little freezer full of little steaks.
Oh, I'd love that. I'd love that. Okay. So I bring up this whole Megyn Kelly situation here just to lead us into this idea of the Black Santa.
Mm-hmm.
And it's actually a much older idea than we would think, but not really in a good way. Because, for decades and decades, Santa had been portrayed in blackface as this basically black version of Santa that existed as a caricature to reinforce the supremacy of white Santa. So he'd be like bumbling.
Great. Incredible.
He'd fall down the chimney and like catch on fire and just generally, be an embarrassment that made the white Santa look great.
Yeah, because white people are never embarrassing, ever. No, not once. Yeah.
Not. By the 1930s, though, we had Bill Bojangles Robinson, who was kind of the first major Black performer in the country to break into the white entertainment space without using blackface, because a lot of people don't know that Black actors also used blackface. And it was like kind of this double, this thing where if you were going to be a Black actor appearing on stage, you had to appear in this derogatory way,
right?
Which is just like a really interesting thing that I often forget happened. But he dressed up as Santa, not in blackface, for a Christmas party for underprivileged kids in Harlem. And this was really interesting because the press painted this as a really positive thing because Bojangles Robinson had really gained a lot of white acceptability because he had kind of not taken on a political identity, right? He had kind of just...
And that's why to this day, white people name their dogs after him for some reason.
Yep, for some reason. So then in the 1940s and 50s, we had this, big white flight to suburbia, and a lot of the urban centers that used to have a lot more white customers living in them had to start catering toward Black consumers. So that definitely translated to Christmas and the need to appeal to Black kids as well as their parents.
Because even if you don't believe in someone's civil rights, you still want them to spend their money at your store.
Yeah, exactly. So, these department stores, in cities were facing like that age-old choice in terms of representation of like whether they're going to stick to their racist guns and not alienate their racist white shoppers, or if they're going to open up their stores to a more progressive agenda and then hopefully invite enough Black business to make up for any losses. Because as most of us know, capitalism will take any political stance that is most beneficial to its bottom line. And that's been true forever.
Yes.
So yes, we started having this handful of Black Santas appear. It was really rare. And a lot of stores at this point were still not hiring Black workers at all, or they were only hiring them in very, specific.
Like behind the scenes work.
Yeah, exactly.
Like mailroom, but not out on the floor kind of a thing.
Right, exactly. And so by the mid 60s, there was a lot of questions around what should happen in terms of Black representation in culture. And there were some activists that were like, it's so important for us to, have our place in like white roles like Santa Claus. And others were like, no, we need to reject that entirely because it's all this white capitalist creation that's all about consumerism over acts of community service and all that kind of thing. So there was like definitely this internal battle of like, how do we deal with the white Santa problem? So the rise of the Black Mall Santa, whatever you believe about that, we're going to talk about kind of the representation side of this. So the rise of the Black Mall Santa really started in earnest in Bloomington, Illinois in 1965, where this really popular Christmas parade was held each year that featured floats by local businesses and organizations, including the NAACP. So they were part of this parade each year. So that year, the NAACP had created a float, and it said equal opportunity employer in big letters, and then listed 5 local department stores that had hired on more Black staff and encouraged people to patronize those stores and to boycott the stores that were not hiring enough Black staff and in positions that were equitable across the board. So cool move. Love it. So the float included like several kids of different racial backgrounds, as well as the president of the NAACP. His name was Merlin Kennedy, of the local chapter, I should say, of the NAACP. His name was Merlin Kennedy, and he was dressed as Santa Claus.
And I bet everyone just was really calm and collected about it. No one lost their mind.
We don't really know how many people actually lost their minds, but we do know that it really pissed off the Bloomington mayor, Robert McGraw, who was mad not only at Black Santa, but also the idea that any of the stores in his purview should be boycotted. He said in the papers, quote, "I don't know what the Negroes are trying to start. There's only one Santa Claus." So MEGYN is singing.
What is it with like these grown adults?
I know. It's insane.
Because like, again, it's like, I love Santa. I will protect Santa. But like the idea being like, listen, I know all about Santa and that is incorrect. And it's like, okay, but that like Santa is actually like an idea and a character.
Yeah.
Right.
It's lunacy. So then the mayor uninvited the NAACP from the next year's parade and stated that going forward, there could only be one Santa Claus in the parade. And everyone knew what he meant by that, right?
Yeah.
But in some guerrilla art theater, the NAACP the next year created a float that was a sleigh and reindeer on a flatbed truck and then hid it in the trees of this park near where the parade was supposed to start. And then if you go, Sarah, I would love for you to take a look at this picture on page 16.
Oh, yes. I love this. Wow. So there's a banner. So there's Santa in his sleigh with a big white beard and the classic garb, of course, and then a nice kind of looks like a sort of yard plywood cutout reindeer in front. And it's probably Rudolph, because if you're going to have one reindeer, that's who you want. And the banner on the float says, "Don't buy gifts this Christmas. Give love. Get off somebody's back."
Which I love.
That's beautiful.
At the opportune moment, our Black Santa Claus, played by Merlin Kennedy again, emerged on the sleigh as they kind of pushed the float out into the parade line. But they didn't get very far. The cops pulled up and blocked the float and then threatened to arrest the group if they didn't disperse immediately.
See, this feels like because, of course, like the Hallmark movie premise, of which I will watch a Hallmark movie whenever it's on. I'm not complaining, really. But that it's always like, oh, no, our town loves Christmas, but something is threatening Christmas. No, it's fine. Like, this is the Christmas movie we need, where Santa gets thrown in jail.
Yeah, I know. And in order to kind of throw a wrench in the cops' gears, this member of a local advocacy group called US, her name was Carol Cox, and US worked a lot with the NAACP as kind of, solidarity together. It's a cool history. But Carol Cox started taking photos of the encounter, and there was no actual film inside the camera. It was just an idea on the fly, and then just started shouting, "They're arresting Santa Claus," which was a very smart move.
Which is not a cute look, in fact.
No, it's not a cute look. You do not want to be the person arresting Santa Claus. I just thought that was like a really brilliant move.
Yeah, that's amazing.
The cops didn't know what to do with this tactic, so they immediately backed off, but they wouldn't really let the float go through. It was blocked. So Merlin Kennedy as Santa jumped from the float and just started walking in the parade, waving to all the spectators.
Can't stop Santa.
That's why I say that we didn't really know the reaction of the crowd in 1965 to this Black Santa Claus. Because according to the activists who were involved, including Merlin Kennedy, the people didn't respond angrily at all to Merlin's Santa Claus.
Right. Because people are not as insane as pundits often make us out to be.
Exactly. And they went as far as to say that the event disarmed the community. And the co-conspirator of this whole project, his name was Henry Gray Sr., he said, quote, that the event was the biggest turnaround in race relations that ever happened in Bloomington.
Wow. There should be a plaque about that. I mean, maybe there is already, but I'm always a fan of more plaques.
It's a really great story. But that being said, of course, not everyone was on board. The leader of the American Nazi Party, George Lincoln Rockwell,
we got to get him for comment.
Yeah, let's get him for comment for sure. Said Negro groups are actually agitating for, all caps, Negro Santa Clauses. Can you imagine the effect of your little toddler on the knee of a Black Santa Claus? Your
child might grow up to be less racist, I guess. Like, what?
Yeah. Well, that's the scariest thing they can imagine. So,
And it is so telling, that, as with the Megyn Kelly thing, this idea of like, that any kind of attempt at inclusivity equates with taking away the thing you like as opposed to adding to it. And people really show their hands by imagining that people want to treat them that way, when I think what they're revealing is that that's how they believe they get to treat other people.
Yeah, 100%. Absolutely. So then in 1969, so 3 years after this Bloomington revolution, the Black Santa fight came to Cincinnati. There was this really awesome activist. His name was Reverend Otis Jr. He was the head of the local chapter of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, and he had been just this huge activist who had worked alongside Martin Luther King Jr. So he had a lot of experience and a lot of drive to get more representation in popular culture. So that year, Otis, as I'll call him lovingly, Otis had hoped to convince the head of Shalitos. Do you know that department store?
No.
It was huge. It was like the Cincinnati's first department store. They were known for their huge window displays, as a lot of department stores were, but they had a full skating rink where all of these animatronics would skate on. It sounded really cool. But Otis had wanted this department store, as well as the others in Cincinnati, to hire more Black workers across all their departments. And he also wanted that to include the role of Santa Claus during their Christmas, rush. So he requested a meeting with Fred Lazarus III. And Fred was the familial heir to the store conglomerate, the Federated Department Stores, which I imagine you have heard of. They, owned a lot of different department stores. And so he was a big deal. He was also the head of the Cincinnati Chamber of Commerce. He had a lot of sway in the community.
I have not heard of the Federated Department Stores. This is a whole new area of study for me.
Yeah, well, you would probably find it pretty interesting.
I'm sure I would, yeah.
Yeah, it was definitely an early conglomerate. So Otis brought his 12 demands to Lazarus in this meeting. And unsurprisingly, I think, the one that really set him off was the demand to hire a Black Santa for the next year. Of course. So the proposal was ultimately rejected, which I don't think is surprising. Well, basically his response was okay, so if you are not willing to hire a Black Santa Claus, then why would you have Black customers? Another activist involved in this said we should start a boycott. And when the press asked what Fred Lazarus thought of that, he just said, I'm not going to lose any sleep over it. And that the Black Santa Claus just doesn't fit the symbol as kids have known it. So the same thing that Megyn Kelly would say, decades later.
Right. And using kids to excuse your own bigotry. You're well, the kids won't accept it. And it's you haven't actually given them the chance to accept or reject anything when you think about it.
100%. Otis told the press, quote, if a department store cannot conceive of a Black man as Santa Claus for 30 days, it most assuredly cannot conceive of his being president or vice president for 365 days. He requested that Black shoppers refuse to shop at Shalito's and other stores as well that were involved in this situation, and demanded that they hire a Black Santa Claus, and then everyone would return and patronize their department stores again. He said, quote, tell your children that Santa Claus is a symbol, and if that symbol cannot be inclusive, covering all races, then that symbol needs to go. Jesse Jackson traveled to help as word spread, as did many other prominent civil rights activists. Everybody just came to Cincinnati to support this Black Santa Claus revolution, which is just lovely.
Wow.
And because these boycotts that were held during Christmas time from Black activist groups had been pretty successful, there was a genuine sense of threat from this growing local movement. It was not, even though Fred Lazarus was kind of being cavalier about it, it was making him really nervous. Mm-hmm. And it continued to do so when people involved in this movement started protesting outside the stores with signs like, welcome to the Lazarus plantation.
Okay.
So he was ooh, boy. He offered them a compromise where he would have a special area of the store for a Black Santa that was apart from the white Santa.
Yeah, separate but equal, if you will.
Yes, separate but equal. So that wasn't going to fly for our dear Otis and his crew, and they kept the pressure on. And finally, Lazarus buckled, and he apologized publicly, saying, quote, it is now clear that a significant number of people do not consider a Black Santa Claus to be incongruous.
It's kind of amazing that they got an apology out of him, especially, I guess, by today's standards where people would sooner die than do that.
Exactly. Yeah. Sooner, absolutely.
They would rather die than let them do it and increase the surplus population.
Yes, exactly. The very next year, in 1970, Shalito's presented their singular Santa, who that year was Black. So, wow. An absolutely successful movement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
God.
I know.
And I guess as a kid, I must have had some inkling that this might be something that adults were, had been prone to freaking out about. But I've never heard that story before, not even a single little whiff of it.
No, I hadn't heard it either.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
The story did get a lot of national press in the late 60s, early 70s, and it led to several other department stores like Abraham and Straus in Brooklyn and Macy's in somewhere in New York. I'm not sure where, but
34th Street, baby. That's where the miracle happens.
that's where the miracle happens. But yeah, they also hired Black Santa Clauses. And then a lot of stores kind of did that thing where they employed both a white and a black Santa. And then there would be like a long row. And then you could either go left or you could go right and choose the Santa that best matches your idea of Santa Claus, which, as you might imagine, got pretty weird.
Yeah. Do you remember, or did you ever read, there's a part in David Sedaris' Santaland Diaries, which is probably my favorite.
I loved it.
Thing of his. Ugh. Yeah. Where he talks about the dads coming in and being like, we want a traditional Santa, traditional.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
You know what? When I remember that, the main thing I think of is the like, I don't know what position this is, but the like elf trainer, I guess, being like, ladies, this is a calendar. Learn how to use it. I don't want to scrape any more blood out of elf knickers.
Oh, boy. But anyway, to this day, less than 1% of Santa Clauses in malls are Black. So it didn't solve the problem in terms of like the statistical need of representation. Right. So I'm sure that MEGYN is happy about that.
Right. And that, we've kind of, it feels like the idea is just about as political as it was and politicized as it was in the 60s of like finding bullshit reasons to deny children the opportunity to have a Santa who looks like them, which I cannot believe that's as controversial as people have made it. But here we go.
Yeah.
More after this. And now back to the show.
We're going to move on to the early 1990s.
Okay.
And another kind of amazing story of activism around the mall Santa Claus. Okay.
I'm so excited.
In 1989, the New York Macy's store was hiring Santas for that December, and a man named Mark Woodley applied. He was a gay man, and he, at that time, was spending most of his life caring for his best friend who was dying of AIDS. He thought that spreading some holiday cheer might help with, the depression that was coming along with not only his personal relationships, but just like the state of what it meant to be a gay man in America. He was hired by Macy's and had a lovely experience that year in 1989 and was quoted as saying, "It's hard to be depressed when you're around an excited kid. It was just magical. Little kids coming in and the wonder in their eyes. And I was a part of that. I've never been so loved. I mean, it was love for Santa, but I was the recipient," which is really beautiful and heartbreaking at the same time.
I would not excel as a Santa, even in wartime, because it just seems like a much more extroverted kind of a thing. But I mean, I can imagine that being, just such a meaningful experience, and also just kind of like learning the Santa trade and that it's kind of this like eternal role that you get to embody and sort of be a conduit to a child's dreams that way. Like,
yeah.
I don't know. I love it. Like, despite all the fun we've been making of everyone, like, I think taking Santa seriously is a beautiful thing.
That's so nice. I didn't know that you thought that. I appreciate that about you.
Yeah, I'm very pro Santa.
You're very pro Santa.
That, everyone should get the Santa that they feel most comfortable with is maybe the theme.
I think that makes sense. Yeah. That definitely makes sense to me.
And not in a bigoted way, but, like there should be a wide variety of Santas for all the little children of the world.
Yeah.
I'm deep down a very corny person. I will rock out to Do They Know It's Christmas. I have no dignity. I will, if it's sentimental, I will pretty much go for it. I don't like the Christmas shoes.
Yeah.
That kid should be with his dying mom. He should not be working to buy shoes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I almost think that I have lots of mixed feelings about Santa, but I don't feel super strongly one way or the other. But I am like, in this moment, I'm like, okay, what if we're like conceptualizing Santa Claus as more of like God who doesn't have an image. He's just like this emanation of presence and love or whatever you want to say. And then everyone else are his prophets, right? So you could have any kind of Santa out there as like a representation or a representative, a Jesus really version of the ultimate God.
Well, or that Santa is kind of like the Holy Spirit and that, Santa can be inside of anyone.
Exactly.
God, I keep saying things that sound filthy. I really don't mean it like that half the time.
We know.
Yeah.
Okay. So Macy's thought Mark did a great job and enthusiastically invited him to take up the Santa mantle again in 1990.
The Santal.
But unfortunately, he had to, as part of it, which is kind of weird, but he had to take a routine physical and he had to disclose that he had contracted HIV and that at the same time, like probably most of us would be doing, he was taking antidepressants. And as soon as all that information came out, Macy's let him know that he would not be returning that year, telling him that it wouldn't be appropriate for Santa to be taking antidepressants. But I think we can kind of gather what maybe the real reason was, as Mark did.
And I mean, people who listen to your show know this, but I mean, just to emphasize, like, the amount of, just unbridled loathing that was considered socially appropriate for Americans to display toward people with HIV or AIDS is really astonishing at that time. And I mean, and it feels, and we were kind of using, the idea of public health as an excuse for that, but it feels like, as with any classic moral panic, they got to use protecting their children as an excuse to deny medical care and human rights to people.
Yep. That's absolutely a great summary. So Mark, attempted to sue Macy's for discrimination, and that, as many of these things do, kind of dragged on through the year. It wasn't really getting anywhere.
Yeah.
Then John Winkleman, who was one of the leaders of the AIDS activist group ACT UP, heard about the case and decided to basically bring up this idea he had to his other colleagues at ACT. So ACT UP had been known for they were really, again, like this guerrilla theater type of activist group, and they did a lot of these theatrical stunts.
Which I embarrassingly first learned about in Rent, which is probably true of many millennials.
Oh, yeah, definitely true.
Actual reality, ACT UP, fight AIDS.
Exactly.
Excuse me, did I do something wrong?
Exactly.
But yeah, and this idea of theater as extremely powerful activism seems like something that we could all learn from today.
Yeah, and who better than the gays? So
yeah, or well, gay Santa is really, the only person better.
Yeah, the pageantry. So on Black Friday in 1991, they decided to stage a protest on behalf of Mark and his unfair firing. So 22 activists stormed into New York's Macy's dressed as Santa Clauses and singing Christmas carols. At first, of course, everyone thought this was like a cute store-sanctioned Santa extravaganza. That is until the Santas reached the cosmetics aisle, where they chained themselves together and started singing new versions of the famous songs. For example, Santa Claus has HIV, fa la 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 la. Macy's won't rehire he, fa la 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 la. Right. Yeah. Obviously, I have a beautiful singing voice. So.
You do. We're going to write country songs together next year. That's my dream.
Absolutely. So if you go down to page 19, you can look at this amazing picture from the newspaper from the protest.
Yes. I see.
Isn't it great?
I can see at least 4 Santas in this photo. They're holding up signs. This is so good. We have a Santa holding up a sign that says AIDS doesn't discriminate, Macy's does. And then the one on the Santa on the left has a sign that says, when Santa had HIV, Macy's fired Santa, ACT UP.
Yeah.
And they are wearing false whiskers, but, they did not have time to grow big beards. So we're going to give that a pass.
No, Max Factor didn't factor into this protest. So as you might imagine, the cops showed up and arrested 19 of the Santas, and that included John Winkleman, who was the head of ACT UP. But for Mark Woodley, he was very touched by this and felt that it was just this like very genius move that made people pay attention to what was happening.
Yeah.
He said, quote, "We forced the media and public to talk about AIDS when they really didn't want to talk about it. We had a sense of humor in our stuff, but the backdrop was people we loved were dying."
Yeah. Well, and just, to get into like the moral panic of it all, it feels, again, like this was a time when people felt very comfortable inventing imaginary science in order to make a person with HIV or a person with AIDS into not someone who, was immunocompromised or someone who was very sick or someone who was dying and needed, our comfort and care and fellowship, but instead making the figure of the sick person into a monster whose goal was to hurt and infect your children. And
absolutely.
And creating the monstrous out of, someone who only required you to offer your humanity.
Yeah.
And that's just something that people do. And it doesn't mean that we're destined to do it, but it's something that we can learn as a pattern and we can learn to subvert that, I think.
Definitely. And I mean, it makes me think of just all of the AIDS urban legends, right? It was like I remember the Pat Robertson one.
Welcome to the world of AIDS. Oh, what's the Pat Robertson one?
The one he said that gay men were wearing special rings that had like blood inside them and had a pricking mechanism. So when the gay person shook someone's hand, they would infect them with HIV.
I think Pat Robertson fell asleep while watching a PBS show about the Borgias and how to dream, and then decided to make that into reality that he told everyone about.
Well, he's dead and in hell, so it's okay. That's what I believe. That's my Christianity.
You know who I also really think is in hell is James Dobson. He's so in hell. He's in like a special hell.
He's king of hell.
Yeah.
Oh God, I don't even know. These men, I'm just glad they're leaving this earthly plane.
I know. And they live so fucking long,
I know.
Most of them.
It's out of spite.
It is.
Spite really can keep a man going.
Yeah, they're just spite with little feet near the end.
Yeah, spiteful little elves.
And a beautiful bibliography of books about how you should abuse your child. Thank you, James Dobson. What were you ever a doctor of? Doesn't matter anymore. You're in hell now.
Great question. A doctor of hell.
I only believe in hell for homophobic fundamentalists, I think. Everyone else, to quote Drew Carey, God just wants you to show up and do your best. He's like a hippie teacher. That's my belief.
Exactly. I agree. So Woodley did eventually reach a settlement with Macy's out of court. We'll never know what that is. But they didn't let him back, as unsurprisingly, they didn't let him back to be Santa there. So instead, he went on to play Santa for years at like various pediatric AIDS clinics in New York.
Oh, my gosh.
We love him.
That's amazing.
We love Mark.
Yeah. I feel like you've made this this is a very Christmassy episode, Chelsey. You're being a Christmas guy deep down. And this is like an anthology show about Santa getting arrested for doing the right thing.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Sarah. I did not know what was going to happen. I did not know there were going to be so many like cool aspects of Santa that, were beyond consumerism. So
we're reclaiming Santa right now. I really love it.
Yeah, I love it too. So obviously, the mall Santa didn't like evolve a ton during this time. So I wanted to talk about these other stories. But if we want to talk about like the modern era of Santa, we do have kind of the return of the Charles Howard Santa School in Santa Ed Taylor's online Santa training school.
Online Santa school. Wow.
I know. The Santa Claus Conservatory.
But I feel like if you do like a real full-throated ho, 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 you're just going to blow out your mic and no one will hear you. It's a problem.
True. Very true. So yeah, he called it the Santa Claus Conservatory. And at this point, they have like 1,800 members. There are various tiers. You can be in the bronze tier, which is geared toward entry-level Santas. You can be in the gold or the platinum tier. And that's for Santas who want to go all the way and play Santa in like movies and TV, which I imagine is mainly Hallmark movies. So yeah.
How many Santa roles are there? I guess a lot. Wow. This is there's so much more to get into. Let's meet back here next year, maybe.
There really is. I know. But I think that this kind of goes to show the way that we're thinking about this like weird institution in like this new era of time, because they have courses on how to work with children with special needs. They have courses on how to avoid any inappropriate touch, as well as the appearance of inappropriate touch. They are teaching you how to keep your hands visible at all times and how to always involve parents in the decision for the child to sit upon the lap, which is good.
I like the sound of this, because again, like the idea historically in the historical 1990s that you would just hand your potentially very upset child over to just be sat on a strange man's knee, it like does not set you up for success as a kid in terms of understanding what adults are telling you to do if suddenly the rules change overnight. And also just the thing of like being a Santa, like I appreciate it being a course of study, because I think you are in kind of like not an educator role, but you're working with children and you have to understand how to communicate with them and to freak them out as little as possible. Yeah. And I love that this has become such a robust field.
I know. I think it's great. A big part of the trainings is about getting the students of the Santa school to understand that what might have been appropriate in another decade is no longer considered appropriate, because, of course, we're working with men in their 60s, 70s, 80s, and they need to learn the ways of the modern world. With Santa Ed. He's doing God's work out there. Conservatory students are taught that Santa does not tease kids about their weight, even gently.
I can't believe we had to teach Santa that.
I know.
But of course we did. Yeah. Yeah, of course you don't, Santa. Come on.
They're also taught that political jokes are off the table.
How would that even come up?
Well, let me tell you how it came up, Sarah, because in 2016 at the Seminole Town Center in Sanford, Florida, the mall Santa told a 10-year-old girl that while she was on his nice list, he said, "Do you know who is on my naughty list?"
Oh, my God.
Who do you think?
Hillary Clinton.
That's right. And then he just went,
"Come on, Santa." Look, Santa doesn't vote because he isn't a citizen of the United States.
Great
because
point.
He lives on the North Pole, okay? Or maybe he votes, but only in the local North Pole election where they probably like find the most responsible elf to be the alderman or something.
He's like all those Australian people on like Instagram comments that are standing up for the Trump administration. And you're like, you don't even go here.
I know, I just have a lot of prejudices.
So that Santa was not fired, actually, but was sent to Human Resources Counseling. So.
He didn't do something really awful, like contract a disease against his will. My God. Okay.
So, that's kind of the things that our modern Santas are mulling over and putting into action at the malls where they are not dying. Though the malls are dying, as far as I can tell, the Santa business is still booming.
But the Santas are strong.
Yeah. It's wild. And, in like a nice thing to point out, I suppose, on theme with this episode is there are a lot more like diverse Santas. There's across the country. And for example, we'll look at the Mall of America, where recently there were 2 bilingual Santas. There was an Asian American Santa who speaks Cantonese. There are 2 Black Santa Clauses, and then even one who communicates in sign language, which I think is lovely.
Which we learned is very important in the 90s Miracle on 34th Street.
Exactly. So even though the malls are dying, we still have our Santa, and perhaps we will always have him, even if he looks different.
We better. Or some form of Santa. I feel like I don't know. There's something kind of beautiful to me about the fact that we created Santa as like this magical figure with a magical workshop who like does everything he does to like delight children and create a sense of wonder in them. And then we as adults kind of showed our hands by being racist or homophobic or sexist or, just trying to sort of like whittle Santa down to the size of our tiny little worldviews. But Santa is bigger than that. And I think kids understand that better than we give them credit for, maybe.
I think that's absolutely true. And I don't know. So far, I haven't heard many kids complain about the Santa that they see at the mall. So,
right.
Yep.
Did I tell you that when I was growing up, we would always leave out beer for Santa?
Whoa, no, that's great.
Yeah. We left out a Foster's for Santa.
Oh my God. So your dad could have it.
Yep.
I love that.
And that did not make me suspect anything. I was like, wow, Santa and my dad like the same beer. That's nice.
So sweet. That's incredibly sweet. Well, that brings us to the end of our 2-part series. So thank you, Sarah, for coming along this Christmas journey.
On this sleigh ride, if you will.
Yes.
Chelsey, I've learned so much.
Yes. So spread the word, people. Santa Claus is a political figure, and he is ready to take down the status quo.
Yeah. And try to stay off the naughty list.
Yeah. And think about what the naughty list would really look like.
Yeah.
Based on what you've learned today.
Exactly. Yeah. And also, if you're listening to the show, I think you're safe. I think you're on the good list.
I think it's okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Sarah.
Ho, ho, ho.
Merry Christmas. This was American Hysteria. If you like listening to Sarah and me together, let me invite you to join our Patreon or Apple Plus, because we have done a special 2-part series this holiday season just for you, all about old ghost stories we dug up on newspapers.com. One of the episodes is available to our subscribers at patreon.com/American Hysteria or on Apple Plus. The other episode is available on the You're Wrong About Patreon at patreon.com/You're Wrong About or on their Apple Plus. Let me recommend that you become subscribers of both shows, because you'll get great content from both of us, which often includes content that we make together. Again, that's Ghost Stories from newspapers.com on both of our Patreons and Apple Pluses. I'd love to also encourage you to go to AmericanHysteria.com, where you can leave us a message on the Urban Legends hotline about a tale that you remember from growing up or one you've heard recently, and we might do an entire investigation about it. At AmericanHysteria.com, you can also pick up some of our merch. 100% of the profits go to support the Samir Project in Gaza, a Palestinian-led mutual aid group who are on the ground delivering food and supplies to displaced families. A really wonderful holiday gift for us would be if you leave us a 5-star review on whatever app you use. It's really easy and it really helps us out. American Hysteria's producer and editor is Miranda Zickler. Our associate producer is Riley Swedelius-Smith. This episode has additional editing by Kaylee Jasperson, and I'm your host, Chelsey Weber-Smith. Thanks, as always, for listening, and I hope you have a tolerable holiday season.